our brains require an enormous amount of calorie output to do something new. So it's going to default to what you've always done.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, the podcast for conscious parents, caregivers, and educators who believe tantrums aren't terrible. They are powerful opportunities for connection, growth, and learning during the first 5 years. You'll explore how to use intentional language to raise calm, confident, and deeply connected kids, because the way we talk to kids becomes how they see themselves and engage with the world. Hi, I'm your host, Cara Tyrrell, classroom teacher turned parent educator and teacher trainer. Are you ready to nurture your children's mind, body, and spirit? Welcome, Toddler Tribe. Let's transform the toddler years together. When your kid falls apart, do you react to your feelings or respond to the situation? That is a key question that we're going to answer today in my episode with Joanna Hardis. She is a licensed therapist, author, and speaker who helps people change their relationship with discomfort so they can do hard things. Her second book, Just Do Nothing for Parents, How to Parent Better by Doing Less, guides you on how to build a concept that she calls distress tolerance. It is such an incredible book. And I cannot wait for you to experience Joanna for yourself. So we are going to get right to it. Joanna, I have waited for this day. You are here, and we are going to talk about distress tolerance.
I'm so happy. I'm so excited. It's been a while. It's been a long time coming.
It has been a long time coming. But what it gave me time to do was read the book, which if y'all are watching on YouTube, you can see I got serious about, about my bookmarks, and so many pages are marked.
You warned me about that
did.
You wanted a hard copy because you are a marker upper.
I am.
Yep.
So I don't even know where to start, to be perfectly honest with you. Like everything in the parenting world, everything in the education world, everything when it comes to raising human beings, this concept that you introduce is so shockingly simple and so desperately complicated. Tell us about it.
It's been around, but not applied to anything outside of suicidality and self-harm, which is interesting. So the concept that you're referring to is distress tolerance, which I probably should explain for people.
Please.
So in layman's terms, distress tolerance is the ability to tolerate emotional discomfort. So that's internal sensations without letting it derail either our actions or our relationships.
Yes.
And so we've known, it's been studied probably since the 80s, maybe a little bit before that. And it's really been a core concept in the psychological literature and in psychology with dialectical behavior therapy, which is the evidence-based treatment for suicidality and non-suicidal self-injury. Cutting, which is how I became really familiar with it because it's a core skill that is taught. But it hasn't, and we know that people who can't tolerate their internal experience are at risk of all sorts of mental health, either challenges or they're more likely to get stuck. But there hasn't been a whole lot of this concept being applied more broadly. So I got really interested because I'm a specialist in anxiety disorders and obsessive compulsive disorder. I got really interested in, applying it, helping people kind of expand their discomfort with discomfort more broadly.
Yeah. it's extraordinary, this idea.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things, well, there's going to be a bunch. So we'll start with the first favorite, right?
I love it.
You said we're not learning how to make uncomfortable moments comfortable. We're learning how to get comfortable with life's inevitable discomfort. That's accepting reality. And one of the things that I see in the parenting world and in the early childhood world is that there seems to be kind of this vision that I don't know where it came from, but this agreed upon expectation that the goal is for everything to just be okay.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be like that.
Exactly. I don't know. Certainly I've been a therapist for 30 years, and it has certainly gotten worse in that time working with parents, belief that kids cannot be, it cannot be uncomfortable, and it is their role, it is their responsibility to make sure that it's interesting that kids, don't experience discomfort, but that also parallels smartphones and parents' willingness to just give their kid a smartphone at an earlier and earlier age, which completely obliterates, kids learning any skills and parents' responsibility. So it's interesting.
What I was so fascinated by, I was reading your book as a parent and then as an educator, right? I kind of took both lenses. And what I noticed is that, and I hadn't exactly realized this before, is that as adults, we are hyper focused on whether or not the kids can tolerate challenge, distress, frustration, wait their turn, all those things. But we don't stop to think all that often about how our distress tolerance is feeding into that relational loop. And so I really keyed in on that, Joanna, and said,
interesting.
Parents need that aha moment. Can I tolerate the moment of uncomfortable? And often the answer is no.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you. And it's often, I don't know how old you are, I'm in mid 50s. We never learned it. So we never learned it growing up. And so oftentimes we're bringing into parenting all the best way we learned how to move through that internal discomfort, which is, it helped us get through, but it probably isn't very effective for our current situation.
Absolutely. So, I'm not sure exactly when this episode is going to drop, but I'll probably be very close to 50 at that moment.
Oh, congrats.
49 at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I feel like I had a unique childhood in this regard because I'm an only child.
Okay.
I wanted so many things all the time. I wanted friends over all the time. I wanted a sibling so badly. I wished that I could, but I had to manage my own time, my own space, my own creativity. I had to do that. And so it is really paying off for me now as an adult because I can look back and notice those things. In the moment, I wasn't too thrilled about them.
Sure.
And so my parents had to be the ones who were like, sorry, this is just how it is. Right? This is your current reality. You get to figure out how to get through it. And it is interesting to me that was easy for them to say.
Okay. So it sounds like you were able to develop the skill set to do it, which is interesting because I think I too had that experience, but without the empathy for how distressing it sometimes was, because I was a really anxious kid.
Well, both my parents are teachers.
Oh,
this like is in my blood, the educator. So they had the training, they knew the science behind it, and
oh,
they
lucky
worked with little
you.
people all day.
Oh, lucky you. So I think, the way that that I learned was suck it up. Like that you're too dramatic.
Ah,
You're so sensitive. Like you're so sensitive.
yeah.
Just suck it up. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. And that is such an important point because our words, like your parents' words and my parents' words, might not have been all that different, but the meaning behind them that was absorbed by each of us was. So it's the energy we bring to that conversation as well. Like I knew when my parents said, you need to figure this out, what they meant was you're capable of doing this.
Right, right, right. And the emotional mirror I got was there is something wrong with you.
Right.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I think is so important for parents, especially if they can learn it young.
Yes.
When their kids are young, is that we are the emotional mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So if we expect our kids, just like you said, circling back, to be able to get through discomfort, to be able to get through challenges, and we have to be able to truly mirror that.
Yeah. And I'm finding all of this so fascinating because toddlers and preschoolers give us ample opportunity to do this every day, all day long.
Yeah.
Right. And so talk to us for a second. There was a section of the book where you talked about the brain science, kind of in layman's terms, but this idea that we are often not in control of the next thing that comes out of our mouth or the next energy we're throwing at these kids, that next message, because it has been so subconsciously driven for so long.
Well, I think what you're referring to is that our brains work on a predictive model.
Right.
And our brains are lazy. I mean, not that our brains are lazy, but our brains require an enormous amount of calorie output to do something new. So it's going to default to what you've always done. So, and that's just how the brain works. So this is often why change is really hard, and we have to set up a lot of mechanisms to change because we're going to default to what it's always done. So when parents say like, you're going to kind of go to what you've always said.
Yeah.
So if you have always, your brain is going to, before the words have even come out, your brain has already kind of queued that up because that's what you've always done. So if you actually want to do something differently, that is going to take so much work to get that system prepared to do it. And so that's also why in the heat of the moment, to expect yourself to come up with you're working against your brain, not with your brain.
Right. That's exactly it. This is what I teach people to do for children, but I loved your idea of microdosing for adults.
Yes.
I want to hear more about that because we can't do an 180-degree shift. Even if someone reads your book, loves every word, says, I want to be that, it's going to take effort. What is microdosing for adults, parents, and how can they kind of manufacture these moments to help themselves practice?
Sure. And they're going to hear microdosing and think I want them to microdose mushrooms or something.
Nope, not that.
Okay. So the idea, and it dovetails off of this idea that in the heat of the moment, you're not going to be able to institute change. That's the heat of the moment. Eventually, yes, you're going to get there. But what I want people to start thinking about is all of those other moments when you're not as emotionally activated. That is all the times that I want people to start thinking about practicing. So I use think about weight training.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get to the microdosing. But think about weight training. And if we think of your toddler throwing the tantrum at Target, that is like a 20-pound weight. So if you've never done a bicep curl, you're not going to be able to pick up a 20-pound weight and like start doing bicep curls. So I need but if you picked up a 3-pound weight, you're going to be able to do a bicep curl. So that is the microdose. So we need to start helping the person find what is your 3-pound weight. And so it may be something like you're in the car and you get a text notification. You don't pick up your phone.
Right?
And how many people, for a lot of people, that is enough discomfort that they're not like thrown into fight or flight, but it activates just enough discomfort where they're just out of their comfort zone, but they can interact differently with that discomfort and they can soften into it. They can relax and they can say, you know what? I'm retraining my brain. I don't have to answer that text.
This reminds me, I've been on a fitness journey for a few years, Fit by 50. That's been my motto. And one of the coaches would always say, you can do anything for 1 minute.
Okay. I love that.
And when I was in the hard part, right? And I'm sweating and I'm cramping and I'm frustrated and I'm done, I had to keep repeating it to myself. I can do anything for 1 minute. But what blew me away the most, Joanna, is how long a minute felt.
I love this. Tell me, during that minute though, what were you focused on?
For me personally, because it's running, one step in front of the other. One more. I was even like chunking the 1 minute smaller and smaller, just 10 more seconds, just 10 more seconds.
Yeah. And what I notice with people is, I love that you can do anything for a minute. What I encourage people to do is, because sometimes people will put all their attention on, I hate this so much. This is so hard. Oh my gosh, my breathing, it hurts so much. And where you put your attention grows. So I want people to put their attention on something else, like what you see in front of you, the music you're listening to. I want them to zoom out. Because I want people to always be paying attention to where your attention's going.
Yes.
Because if your attention is on how much you hate this or how hard it is, that's going to amplify.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that when you reach the end of that minute, there is a sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
There's an I did it. And that was so hard, but I now have evidence that I can do it.
Yes. And I can do it. I like this was so hard and I can do it.
And this is what we want for kids. So I coach parents to create these opportunities in their home, low stakes moments. Nobody is upset. A child appropriately requests something, maybe even with a please and thank you. And the answer they get back is, I would be happy to do that for you in 1 minute. And they set the 1 minute timer and they train the waiting.
Yes. And I'm encouraging parents to get used to doing the same thing. So have your phone in a different room. That could be your 5-pound weight, because we want parents to be, modeling that time with your kids is precious.
Yeah.
So don't be texting while you're with your kids anyway.
Hey, Toddler Tribe, Cara here with a couple of very exciting updates. First, have you noticed? My handle has changed online. That's right. On Instagram and now on my brand new TikTok channel, it's at Cara Talks Toddler. Because that's what we do here, is learn how to choose our words to connect deeply with the littles who know, love, and trust us. Speaking of that, I have lovingly called you my Toddler Tribe for 3 years. So I'm thrilled to announce that we are launching a community just for you. It's time for us to see each other face to virtual face, hear each other in live time so that we can really connect deeply and help each other through those challenging and celebratory moments that is toddlerhood. So I would love for you to do two things. First, make sure you're on the mailing list. All you have to do is go to caratyrrell.com, fill out the small form, and the Core4 connector will drop into your inbox every Monday at 11 in the morning. When you're on the list, you'll be the first to know when the doors are wide open to our toddler tribe. Secondly, and this might even be more important, if you have an idea of how the tribe would feel most comforting, most connected, and most valuable to you, DM me. Send me a message on Instagram or TikTok. Tell me what you need so we can build this just for you.
There was another part of your book that really struck me because, my book, I break things down linguistically. It's all about the language, the words we use, the tone that's my space. Yeah. And emotional regulation is talked about across all of these classrooms and in all of these homes.
Of course.
And it became kind of that buzzword. And all buzzwords are rooted in something that people are really curious about and want to understand. But in your book, I noticed that you differentiated distress tolerance from emotional regulation. And I thought, finally, there's a separation here, and there needs to be, because it's a catch-all right now.
Of course,
so
yes.
Can you break that down for people so they understand the difference between sitting in something hard and managing their feelings?
Yeah, well, they're different. So So we are not in control of what emotion pops up. However, we can control whether we dial that emotional intensity up or we dial the intensity of the emotion down. So that's emotion regulation, but that requires a really good skill set. So the skill set of being able to dial the intensity of an emotion down is called emotion regulation. When people don't have that skill set, what happens is they feel an emotion and unintentionally, they're dialing that emotion up. Just like we talked about paying a lot of attention to an emotion, like, oh my gosh, why am I feeling this way? I hate this emotion. This sucks so much. That is going to dial the intensity of the emotion right up. Ruminating, worrying about it, talking about it incessantly to your friends, asking your kid a million questions about it. All of that is going to dial the emotion up, the intensity up. Not paying any attention to the emotion is going to dial it down. So that is the ability to either, think of it like a people don't have those anymore. What are the dials on your thermostat?
I have one.
You do?
Yeah.
So being able to turn it up or down, that's emotion regulation. Distress tolerance is that's more of a perception that we have that we can handle these uncomfortable emotions.
Yes.
Because it's inevitable. We're going to feel them every day, and our kids are going to feel them every day. So distress tolerance is the belief that it's inevitable that life's going to be uncomfortable every day. We're going to have discomfort, and it's not that deep. Life goes on. I can function with discomfort. And that's what I'm going to model. And that's what I'm going to teach my kids.
I love that you just said it's a belief, that it's a belief system, because it really is the evolution of early identity. Those I know who I am and what I can do belief systems. And I find that more and more kids are falling into this belief gap. It's widening, right? If we don't anchor some of these opportunities and skills and belief systems in them when they're young, then they pop up against the things that are actually challenging, right?
Yes.
Challenging
Yeah.
their core capabilities or challenging their belief systems. They are unable to close that gap and say, I am someone who can learn beyond what I know right now.
Sure. And this is a personality construct of distress tolerance. So we know that, we don't exactly know like what, if someone is, what part is genetic, what part is learned, what part is environmental.
Right.
But if a parent is, has low distress tolerance, the child is going to be more vulnerable because their parent is going to be more likely to swoop in, to be overprotective, all these things that we know are risk factors. This is also why it's so important. And we know that if you are low in distress tolerance, you are more vulnerable to start avoiding your own internal experience, which makes you more vulnerable to develop these maladaptive coping that can lead to substance abuse, anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder.
So what I really want to say right now to everyone who's listening is you have got a beautiful picture of what's in this book right now. We've talked a little bit about the science. We've talked a little bit about the psychology and a lot about the human nature component. So you probably think that you're going to go look for a book that's called How to Manage Your Distress Tolerance as a Parent. That's not the case.
Right.
The book is called Just Do Nothing. And I'll be honest, when your application first came in for the show, I was like, just do nothing? What does that even mean? So take us home. Help us understand what this idea of lack of action means when we are practicing our distress tolerance when engaging with challenging children.
Right. Because it doesn't mean not doing anything. The first book was Just Do Nothing, a paradoxical guide to getting out of your way. So what I'm talking about is to just do nothing with the stuff in our heads. Mm-hmm. This is the hard part. We want to get better at doing less, focusing and fixating less on our thoughts and our feelings so that we can pay more attention to the situation. Mm-hmm. So it's really getting what I really want to help parents do. And this is, I'm going to take one step back. I feel like it's so complicated for parents. My kids are in their 20s. My youngest is 20 today, so now I can officially say that.
Congrats.
Thank you. So my kids are older, but I feel like it's really confusing for parents today because some are told like you're doing too much, you're doing too little. So I think it's confusing. So I wanted to give parents a skill set so they know whether or not they are reacting to their feelings or they're responding to the situation.
Yes.
Because it rarely works when we are reacting to our feelings.
That's true.
Yeah. So what Just Do Nothing is giving people a skill set, not only the questions to ask to know, am I reacting to my feelings or am I responding to the situation? And then how to let the stuff in our head be so that we can be responsive to the situation in a way that feels effective for the person.
Right. And I noticed you had kind of a 4-step plan for that.
5. I think it's pause.
Is it 5?
I think pause is 5 letters. PAUSE. Yeah, pause.
All right.
Yeah.
That's why I mark pages.
Yes.
Well, I can go back.
Yes. I am a huge proponent of a mindfulness practice. So I have created an acronym of pause, which I'll go over. You can use these skills all 5 of them. You can use one, you can use any combination, but I know people like an acronym, and it literally reminds us that we need to pause before acting. Because that is what I want people to do when people are on autopilot, or when people are, being impulsive, or when people are really activated by feelings. It's very automatic to just act. Mm-hmm. So I want people to literally remember to pause, but pauses. So the P is literally to pause and to just take some breaths. That's really easy. The A is to assess. Am I really in danger, or am I really uncomfortable? Because oftentimes parents their bodies are feeling really activated. They're feeling anxious. Everything is feeling urgent and like they have to act immediately. But the situation is not urgent. Mm-hmm. And so I want parents to ask themselves this question, and they can remind themselves, and I have a lot of clients who say, this is discomfort. This is not danger.
Right.
In the minute that you tell yourself this is discomfort, it's like, okay, I need to, back up. I need to slow this train way down. If you're actually in danger, then that's another story. But 99% of the time, you're not going to be. The U is to unclench, because when we are activated, our bodies are so braced.
Yeah.
And that bracing, people may think well, who cares? This is so dumb, Joanna. But no, because when you're braced, you are sending the signal to your brain, danger, danger, danger. And so when you're sending that signal, you are not, that threat detection system of your brain, which I go into in more detail, is online, which means that your thinking system is offline. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not quite that binary. So we want the brain to recognize that everything is okay. Our survival's not in danger. Mm. So the easiest on-ramp for that for people is often physically. So I want people to notice the areas of tension and literally to loosen their grips.
Yes.
Which gets to the S, which is soften. So we want to soften toward the discomfort. So that could be their breath, that could be their jaw, that could be their shoulders, that could be, but we want to recognize that just because I'm uncomfortable doesn't mean there's anything wrong.
Yes.
Because you could be at the, I have tons of clients who tell me, and I had this experience when my kids were little, that I would be at the playground and thinking that there was danger. There was no danger, but my body would tell me something that my kids were about to be in danger. There wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I had to literally soften everything, because what goes on in our heads, it cannot be trusted when we're in that state.
That's right.
And so it's our job to be the mirror, to soften everything, to relax, and you may not relax, but we have to soften toward it. And then the E, which is engage, which is engaging with the situation.
Wow. Yeah. And again, I'm just so struck by the fact that this is a process that I teach for parents to see the world from their children's perspective, right? Because that's the goal, that we want kids to be able to do those things so that they can cognitively problem solve all by themselves, so that all of that, right? That the ready for kindergarten stuff. But to take a step back and realize that the conscious awareness of it has to start in the adult.
Yes,
And that
right.
there are 4 actual steps before taking any action.
Yeah.
Right? So it's awareness, 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 awareness. And so what you're teaching us in this book is that as adults, we need to retrain ourselves in what it means to be self-aware.
Yeah. Self-aware and retrain ourselves to be self-aware and probably change our relationship with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because I think we all need to do a self-inventory of how do I respond when I feel uncomfortable? And that discomfort could be when I get scared, when I'm embarrassed, when I feel vulnerable, when I make a mistake, all those things. There's, the A to Z of uncomfortable emotions. And it may be a different response when I say goodbye to my child, all these different things, because the behavior is the outwardly thing, but the emotion is going to be different. So what is my go-to for how do I manage these uncomfortable but really normal emotions?
Yeah.
And be able to do it with curiosity and not judgment toward ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's very hard to think about everything you just said, even in one situation, right? I was sitting with intention. I was listening to you. I was picturing myself on that park bench. And each step, I was like, okay, this takes effort. This takes focus. This takes intention. And then I remembered that we're not doing this in a bubble. The child is still in front of us having the meltdown, right? So they're tossing their distress, their emotional off the charts at us, their fear, their confusion, their overwhelm. And we have to remember they really don't have these skills. They shouldn't be expected to be able to do the pause system yet, but we need to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
So much work. And this is why I said at the top of this episode that it is like everything in any type of psychological pedagogy, so incredibly simple when you look at the nuts and the bolts of it. And so incredibly complicated when you think about living it and applying it.
Yes. And, there are so many opportunities for us to practice.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many opportunities. I mean, if we think about our phones, not answering a text, or the urge to over apologize to a friend and don't do it, or the urge to seek reassurance, don't do it. I mean, and I hope in the book I gave so many examples of weights, metaphorical weights to do that, because that's when once we start to see all the micro ways that we're avoiding discomfort. At the gym, you could take a 5-pound weight. You could take an 8-pound weight, but you're like, I don't feel like being uncomfortable today. So you take a 5 and you're like, no, I can do this. So you take an 8-pound weight.
Oof, do I hear that? I don't feel like being uncomfortable today.
Yes. But first we have to really see all the ways in which we are avoiding in our own lives outside of our kids, which I really want parents to start to see. I want parents to really do the exercises, because we have to broaden our experience of how all the ways that we avoid discomfort in our lives, or we use someone else to mitigate our own discomfort. We use a friend, crowdsourcing, going to Reddit, going to Google, versus just allowing the uncertainty to be there.
Something I have learned with some other great books I'm reading these days is that the brain's natural state of being is calm, peace, and ease. Thoughts move through. And if, like you said, if we don't feed the thought, if we don't think about the thought, if we don't exacerbate the thoughts, they will settle all on their own. And I've got to tell you, for me, the point in life where I was able to turn away from catastrophic thinking, because I was that person. I actually created problems so I could solve them. Like it was it was wild and very catastrophic. Always thinking that things were going to go wrong or somebody was dead in the side of the road because they were 5 minutes late. Like and then we had a true tragedy in our family happen. And on the other side of that tragedy, losing this little person and going through therapy, I learned that I had to take control of my thoughts. That now more than ever, they were going to try to convince me that everything would be wrong because, you know, I lost a baby, right? You don't ever come back from that in the same way. It either helps you redesign the core of who you are and the way that your brain is wired, or it kind of slays you forever. Yeah. So same, right? Then we had our next baby and she'd be taking an extraordinarily long nap. And I'd be like, I've got to go upstairs. She's dead. She's in her crib. She's dead. I know it. And I would go upstairs and she'd be fine. Yes. And then the next time it happened, well, I'll be honest, it happened a lot like that until I was able to control it. But like eventually I was able to hear the thought and say, I have evidence that that was not true the last 10 times. Let me wait 5 more minutes, watch the monitor. Well, I didn't have a visual because again, my kids are your age. But listen to the monitor and trust that everything's okay. So hard.
Yes, it must have been brutal. And you built your capacity for that discomfort and that uncertainty.
I had to, or because I knew what the outcome would be if I didn't. I knew that if I couldn't control those fear-based emotions, I would raise a fear-based kid, and I could not have that. The whole point of the blessing that God gave me that I got to keep this one was that I got to raise her as a strong, confident, capable human being.
Yeah. And that's the difference between reacting to your feelings and the situation.
Yeah.
It's so hard. But that's what building that distress tolerance is what you did.
Yeah.
You build that capacity.
Yes. Yeah. And you're never done. And, you know, my prayer is that people don't have to suffer major mental health issues or major tragedies in their lives to have the moment where they decide that they're going to take control. But wherever you are, whatever your journey you're in, whether you're just recovering from a terrible childhood and trying to raise good humans at the same time, like you can do this. And Joanna's book is personable. It's relatable. It's like you've got a friend just talking to you as you're reading it. And then of course she gives you step by step how to take control of your thoughts and make yourself feel like you can do this.
Oh, good. Thank you. Because no matter what, raising kids is so difficult and there's so much uncertainty and the world it's scary. And I think we want our kids to grow up with this skill set.
Yes.
And be independent. And that requires us to be able to give them that autonomy and that problem solving.
Yes.
And I think that requires, for most of us, being able to tolerate an enormous amount of discomfort.
Yeah, especially as they get older, because it gets different, but it does not get easier. And it's interesting, right? Because we say when we look at tiny people in our lives, we're raising adults because that's the end goal. Yeah. And it's true. But I really think we've got to scratch that term adulting and we've got to bring in distress tolerancing because that's what they do all day, every day.
Yes. The hard parts get harder as they get older.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for taking time. I know you're all over the place traveling. And so to find this 45 minutes to have a conversation that I know is going to really soothe people and help them understand that they have so much more ability to choose how they want to show up as a parent. It's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to start small.
Yes.
I mean, I just want people to know that probably if they've tried to change and it hasn't worked, they may have been starting really too hot, but bitten off more than they could chew, and which is what most of us do. And we've got to start small steps, small weights.
All right. So Toddler Tribe, you know what to do. So you're going to go get the book, Just Do Nothing for Parents. That is going to give you, there's yours.
There's mine.
Without all the fancy bookmarks. And if you're finding that the roadmap makes sense to you, but you really want someone to help personalize it to who you are, who your children are, and what your values and your home-based goals are, that's what I'm here for. So you can always book a call. It's free to get a complimentary connection call. We'll suss it out over 20 minutes or so and see if I can help you make the small steps that get you to where you want to be.
Fantastic.
Yeah. All right, Joanna, thank you so much. I look forward to hearing all the feedback on this episode because I have a feeling it's going to be good.
Oh, fantastic.
All right. Everybody out there, you know what to do. Stay mindful and proactive until our next episode as we transform the toddler years.